Brandon Victor Swanson was born on January 30th, 1989 in Marshall, Minnesota, to parents Brian and Annette Swanson. Brandon grew to be 5 foot 6 inches, weighing about 120 pounds. Brandon grew up in Lyon County, eventually graduating from Marshall High School in 2007. He decided to study wind turbines at Minnesota West Community College, located in the city of Canby, about 35 minutes away from his hometown. On May 13, 2008, his first year of college came to an end. As a way to celebrate, Brandon attended 2 separate parties with friends in Canby. It is reported that Brandon did drink at the parties, his friends saying they did witness him drinking alcohol. However, they have all said he did not seem visibly intoxicated. When he left the party to go home, that was the last time he was ever seen. He was last seen wearing baggy jeans, a blue striped polo shirt, a white Twins baseball cap, a silver chain along with stud earrings in both ears. He wore black wire-framed glasses, and he is also legally blind in his left eye. He was also carrying his black Motorola cell phone. It is reported that around midnight is when he left Canby to make the 35-minute drive back to Marshall. However, around 1:54 a.m., Brandon called his parents for help. He had accidentally drove his Chevy Lumina into a ditch, his 2 tires on the side coming off the ground slightly. He told his parents he was not injured, he just needed them to come pick him up. Brandon told his parents where he thought he was located, near a town called Lynn. His parents made their way to the place he claimed to be, staying on the phone with Brandon as they looked. Brandon flashed his car lights a couple times to try and get his parents to locate him. His parents flashed back. However, they could not find Brandon, and getting frustrated in the process, Annette has even said that at one point Brandon actually hung up on her, but she called back and apologized. Brandon told his parents he would start to walk toward the bright lights he saw in the distance, thinking this was the town of Lynn. He told them to meet him in the parking lot of Linwood Bar and Grill, and he'll wait for them. Brian drives back home to drop Annette off while staying on the phone with his son. Brian reports Brandon saying he keeps running into a lot of fencing, and he can hear running water in the background. At 3:10 a.m., Brandon yells out, "Oh shit." Brian says it almost sounds like he slipped, then the call ended. That was the last time anyone has heard from Brandon Swanson. His dad continued calling his phone, hoping that if he dropped it, the light illuminating would help him find it. However, Brandon never called back. Brandon never showed up to the Linwood Bar and Grill. Annette called the police that morning at 6:30 a.m., but the police were not concerned about Brandon at all. They told his parents that he's a 19-year-old man, he has a right to be missing. And rightfully upset, the Swansons spent most of the morning convincing the police that he wasn't just out and about. He had called them specifically asking for help. They were on the phone with him and it just cut out. Police eventually started searching later in the morning, not finding a trace of him. They pulled his cell phone records to reveal that he wasn't near the town of Lynn at all. His records pinged to a town called Taunton, northwest of Marshall, and 25 miles away from Lynn, the town he thought he was near. After searching the area of Taunton, they eventually found his Chevy on a gravel road in a ditch close to Highway 68. The car showed no obvious signs of foul play, and the keys to it were missing. His parents were genuinely confused, with Annette saying, and I quote, "He was extremely sure of himself. He felt confident in where he was at." Since Brandon had been drinking that night, it's suspected that he took back roads to go home to avoid the possibility of a DUI. I've also come across a couple sources that did say a pipe was found in Brandon's car, but I haven't seen any articles of law enforcement confirming that. I've also heard that he left his glasses in his car as well, but I never got to find any confirmation of that as well. Investigators started using bloodhounds and cadaver dogs to help find Brandon. According to the search and rescue team notes, a bloodhound picked up on his scent. From Brandon's vehicle, it traveled half-mile south, then turned west onto 390th Street. It continued for a mile, then turned north onto County Road 16. The trail continued north until it turned west into the driveway of an abandoned farm. It left the driveway and followed northwest along the course of the Yellow Medicine River, a 107-mile-long river not far from where Brandon's car was found. The bloodhound jumped in the river, then got out on the other side. The handler interpreted this as though Brandon may have fallen into the river or possibly walked through the water. The bloodhound continued to a drainage nearby, then headed north towards a gravel road between Lincoln and Yellow Medicine County. This is where the dog stopped. They searched 122 square miles, but nothing has been found. Scent was found on a nearby piece of farm equipment. However, the landowners denied permission to have police search their land. To this day, not a trace of Brandon Swanson has been found. Let's discuss the most popular theories. The first theory is drowning. Most people believe Brandon drowned in the Yellow Medicine River. The river runs anywhere from 4 feet to 15 feet deep. Investigators searched the river for him and didn't find any sign of his body. His phone has never been found in or on the perimeter of the river either. If he had fallen in the river with his phone and drowned, how was his phone still able to ping the next day? I understand why people believe this theory, however, I don't feel it's possible. It's been 15 years now. Wouldn't his body have floated to the top? I read an article that law enforcement in 2021 were searching in local creeks and in the river for any signs of his remains, but nothing has come of it. All in all, I do not believe Brandon died from drowning. The next theory is that Brandon died from hypothermia. It was just under 40 degrees that morning he went missing, along with the possibility of him falling into the river, which was under 40 degrees. That means he got out soaking wet, started freezing, and tried to get somewhere for shelter before succumbing to the elements. But the problem with this theory is the lack of evidence. The next theory is Brandon was met with foul play. I do believe this theory over the others because no trace of him has ever been found. I find it suspicious that the farmers declined permission for law enforcement to search their land. I read that it could be because searching could destroy their crops or upset their livestock, but at the same time, we're talking about police trying to find a 19-year-old young man. What if Brandon had succumbed to hypothermia, died on the farmland, and the farmer decided to dispose of his body? Or was run over by farm machinery and the farmer got rid of his body? I've also seen many people talk about how there's wells and unmarked cisterns in the area. Could he have fallen down into one? Maybe a farmer filled it without even knowing he was down there? Or saw his body, panicked, and filled it anyway to avoid charges? Or could someone else have killed him? According to an article from The Crime Wire, written on April 24th, 2024, law enforcement got a tip within the last year regarding new information about the night of his disappearance. It's reported that Brandon had gotten into an argument with someone at the party he attended. Could someone from the party have followed him to where he got stuck in Taunton? His scent stopped on a gravel road. Is it likely he could have gotten into someone's car, whether they were a stranger or not, and eventually became the victim of foul play? Something that struck me as odd is that I can't find an interview from Brandon's friends. I haven't even been able to find a statement from his friends or anyone else at the party with him. I can't help but wonder if the tip law enforcement got was true. A fight ensued at the party, Brandon left and was followed. Maybe that's why Brandon exclaimed, "Oh shit," and the call got disconnected. Brandon could have gotten into their car or was forced. Maybe that's why nothing has been found, not his clothes, phone, anything. Maybe that's why no one from the party has come online to say anything. From Canby to Taunton, it's an approximate 15-minute drive. How is it that Brandon left Canby around midnight and his car was in a ditch in town at 1:54 a.m.? Did he stop somewhere? Was he too drunk or even high to know where he was going? How did Brandon take an hour to drive to a town 15 minutes away? Is that why he believed he was actually in the town of Lynn? It's hard to wrap my mind around how a young man who lived his whole life in this area got it so wrong where he was. His parents and friends both said he did not seem drunk. Or could it be that it's 1 a.m, he is possibly a little buzzed, tired, and he's driving through extremely dark farmland on gravel roads where everything looks the same? If he had chosen to drive home on the highway, a route that he knew well, would he be here today? I feel as though I have an endless amount of questions that cannot be answered. The unsolved case of Brandon Swanson is one that I first found out about when I was around 18, 19, Brandon's age when he went missing. It has stuck with me ever since. I genuinely think about Brandon Swanson a lot. I think about how he must have felt in the early hours of May 14th. I think about how he must have felt in the dark, alone, unable to see, walking through vast fields of farmland. I think about how he must have felt so excited that the spring semester of his first year of college was finally over. How his life was just beginning. How he celebrated the last day of college classes while also celebrating what may have been the last day of his life. This case is so eerie to me and is one I never stop thinking about. I'm constantly trying to do more research, trying to find the missing puzzle piece that could somehow point this case in a direction, but I'm just as dumbfounded and lost as others who follow the case. 16 years later, there's still no trace of him. And I hope that they find Brandon in my lifetime and his parents can finally put him to rest. For this is the vanishing of Brandon Swanson. Let me know what you think down below.